Hello, my name is Gerald Peplow, and I want to tell you a cool little story. Before I do that, I have to tell you a little bit about what happened. Okay, so back on May 3rd, 1944, our planes were able to sneak up from their aircraft carriers and pound a place called Truk Lagoon. The operation was called Operation Hailstorm. So what had happened is the Japanese had used this lagoon, which was really big, used this lagoon to keep all their supply ships there. And the warships would come in. I mean, like, for example, we got to go on one ship that had shells that were for the Musashi. And the Musashi had just left Truk Lagoon 2 or 3 days before the attack on Truk Lagoon. So what happened, the Americans went in with their sneak attack and absolutely pounded the Japanese merchant fleet. And what ended up happening was it made it almost impossible for the Japanese to be able to supply their ships. So I want you to imagine that these ships were coming into harbor and setting everything up, and then all of a sudden these planes appear out of nowhere from, of course, our aircraft carriers. And they came in and boom, 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 and there was no way out. We had them blocked, and that was the end of the story then. There was no way for them to get away. But that's not the real story. Okay, so I finally got my chance to go to Truk Lagoon. And I was really excited because I'm a history buff. I like to see learn a lot about what happened in the past. It was really cool to find out that we had snuck up on this lagoon with our aircraft carriers and planes and wiped out the Japanese merchant fleet, which had made it hard for them to resupply their ships. But the coolest thing is while we're on the ship, we got to see all these things, but then they also knew we were all photographers. And photographers don't make very good dive buddies. And the reason why they don't is because they don't focus the people next to them. So even though we were diving together generally, each of us was diving on their own. Well, one night, I decided to go out on a night dive. Now, I was the only one in the water at the time. Everybody else decided not to go. And I went down, it's about 40 or 50 feet, and I'm just swimming along, and I find this ship, right? Well, I knew this ship was there, but I found it. It's hard to find it in the dark. So I found the ship, and I followed it. And I have this headlight, and the headlight, as I move along the ship, the headlight just goes alongside the ship, sort of like in Titanic. It was really cool. So as I'm going along on this, I find a gigantic torpedo hole. It was amazing. I'm thinking, man, I would not have wanted to have been there when that ship was hit. All right. Well, of course, being a photographer, and that night I was just taking pictures. I didn't have video, so I decided I would just go a little bit around the edge and not go into the ship. Right. So I'm just taking these pictures. And I sort of got a little bit disoriented. If you're a diver, you know it's easy to do that. So what happened is I felt something brush against my head. And then after I felt this brush against my head, I'm going like, what was that? What was that? Then I turned my head, and I had swam inside of this torpedo hole. Now, I want you to get this pretty clear. This is a big torpedo hole, and your dive light only sees about maybe 25 to 30 feet at the most. And then it also makes it hard for you to see anything because it blocks out your light. So, I mean, it overwhelms it. It's like a bright moon. You can't see stars, right? Okay, so I'm inside this ship, and I look up and around, and now my light is starting to reflect on all these cables that are dangling down. And I started to get freaked out a little bit because when I looked around, I could not find my way out. Now, the very first thing I wanted to do, was panic. I just wanted to swim to get away. My heart started to pound. My breath, the chest was heaving, and I started to lose my cookies. I mean, here I am, alone, in a shipwreck, and I didn't know where I was. The problem is this light, this great big bright light that I was wearing on my head, it drowned out everything. All I could see what was in front of me. I was terrified. I thought, my gosh, I'm lost in the ship. How am I going to get out? So, first, the rule in diving is if you're still breathing, you're still alive, and you can still do something. So, I kept my cookies together, and I began to calm down. I sort of just relaxed, listened to the bubbles, listened to myself breathing. Everything inside me wanted to panic. Everything inside me said, get out of there now. But I just was calm. And this happened on several dives that I've been on. Then I looked around, and I still couldn't find my way out. I was inside this ship, and I'd accidentally swam into this torpedo hole, which was, I could not believe how big. If you saw this hole, you'd understand how easy it was to get into that ship by accident. Okay, so there I am, trying to relax. And I calm myself down and say, all right, I'm breathing, so I'm okay. Then something came to me. It's too bright. I can't see. Is there... And so I calmly relaxed, kept myself composed, and I covered my headlamp. All of a sudden, everything was dark. Now, if you know anything about vision, your vision doesn't come to you right away because all that light destroys your night vision. But I knew this already. So I was negatively buoyant, just sort of floating there. So I closed my eyes and just relaxed. Not for very long. Just long enough so that my eyes would be able to get used to the darkness. And when I opened my eyes, lo and behold, over to the right, I could see the light of the moon shining through. And when the light of the moon was shining through, that was my way out. It was sort of like an angel, because I was about to lose my cookies. So I looked over there, and I kept my light covered, because I didn't want to get lost again, and I started swimming out. And then I swam out and looked up, and the moon was fully bright. Now, if I had not covered my light, if I had not been calm, if I had lost my cookies, it would have been the end of me, okay? Because there's so many things that get tangled up inside of a shipwreck. But because I was calm and relaxed and covered my light, I was able to swim to safety out through the hole I had just swam in by accident. And that was because the moon was shining through the water. And I have to tell you, that was probably one of the most scariest times of my life, but also one of the most exciting times. Thanks for listening.